Hi, I'm Ash Cottrell with the Sports Information Department here at Salisbury University. Today, we're taking a look at the 2014-15 men's basketball season with previous head coach Josh Merkel and current head coach Mo Williams.
The 2014-15 season was the first time the Seagulls had taken the CAC title home, as well as the NCAA Division III tournament title since the 1996-1997 season. So that's 18 years. What did that mean for you, Josh, as the head coach, and you, Mo, as assistant at the time?
Mo, do you want to go first?
Coach, you got it, man.
All right, we'll go with age first, I guess. Yeah, Ash, it was an awesome feeling. Certainly, having been a student athlete there, having been a part of teams that had not made the tournament. I always tell players that one of my biggest regrets was not playing in an NCAA game or even playing in a CAC championship game, and always wanted that for the athletes that I coach. That's a big goal, and to be in a game where everything matters, and then to get to a tournament. Even over that time, you can't really control, when the last time was, but I'll even back it up to one of the reasons that I chose Salisbury was that Elite 8 team from 96, 97, the great success they had. It was a team that you wanted to be a part of, a program that you wanted to be a part of. And that was something that we were building towards. And when you cut down a net, it's a little bit of a culmination that some of the things that you're doing are coming together. And so it was, beyond a great experience. And to see the emotions and the excitement of the student athletes, the players and the coaches that we had, to know that hard work meant something. It was really neat to see.
Yeah, for me, one word that just caps that year off is special. And, not saying this just because he's on this call, but Coach did an incredible job of just leading this group. I remember all those, morning recruiting meetings and all those team meetings and all the guys reciting the culture and just all those things. And when you're in the process of it as a student athlete and even as a staff member at times, you're like, what's the purpose of this? Like, how is this going to impact the overall, result? And it was just really cool as you just start to see these pieces and his leadership and these guys, start to really just grow into the vision that we had set, for the program and all those things. So, one word for me was just special. And being a really young assistant coach, that was my second job, third year as being a coach, just learned so much, and I think if you're ever around Josh Merkel, the one thing you can't say is you're not going to get better. And, he challenges you a lot. He's always bringing things to sharpen your mind. And all those things, I just believe, were just little blocks that overall led to what I think we're talking about today. And what I think, a lot of those guys that resulted in what we did here, now them being able to go back on that experience and just talk about how special it is as well, because now they go back and say, oh, that really made sense why Coach was hard on us on that area, or why we did that. So it was special. It really was. And for me, being a young assistant coach, I take a lot of things from that year, that experience, and from Coach that still I hold close to me today.
Josh, you said that one of the reasons why you chose Salisbury is because of that 1996-97 team. Is there anything you took from that team into your team during the 2014-15 season?
I think you success leaves clues. So you always want to learn from those that came before you, and have relationships with some of the guys on that team. And then, of course, Ward Lambert, the captain of that ship, was my coach for 3 years, and he and I have a special relationship. And Coach was watching every game that we played in that 14-15 year. I'd get an email from him with the rankings. Coach is big on numbers and grading system, and so I got a lot of F's in the emails coming along. But it just shows how much he cared, how much former players have cared, I think one big takeaway too is, the 2015 team gets the credit, but there's so much work even before that went into it. So you don't want to ever lose the work that people were doing before then, because although the 2015 team is always going to hold a super special place, that 2014 group was an awesome group too. And that 2013 group where we caught fire at the end of the year, but it wasn't enough to get you over the hump or into the tournament. But seniors like Elijah Gore, Trayvon Van, Craig Ryan were awesome to coach, awesome to be a part of. Elijah Gore, Dominic Milburn, who both were on staff for that 2015 team, along with Mo and Doug Howard. So to answer your question about, what was it from that team? I think it's that team. I think it's each of the teams that you get to come in contact with, and the individual work that goes into it, the commitment that's made, the choices that are made. I think of Nick Sparacino specifically and Connor Strickland, two seniors on that 2015 team, the only two seniors, and just incredible buy-in, work ethic, choices that they made along the way, so that all of the guys that were younger than them really looked up to them, really gave them more of their heart. I know Nick was a big reason that Wyatt had all the success that he had. It was always there. It's just a matter of kind of chipping away to get to the gold underneath of that statue for a guy like Wyatt and some others. So yeah, I'm going to try not to be too long-winded, but I could brag on the individuals and tell a bunch of stories. Maybe we get into that too.
All right. I know that was your last season here at Salisbury. What do you think set that season apart from your previous 3 seasons? Or do you think that this was just like a combination of building upon those past seasons that got to that point?
The short answer to that question is, what was different was the ending. Just the devastation from losing the game to go to the Sweet 16, but also catching fire. I don't know if it was, maybe we won 15 of 17. I mean, people forget, or maybe they don't forget, but it's easy to forget when you win 20 plus games that season did not begin great for us. In fact, it was a terrible beginning, and you're wondering, where is this thing going to go? And that's where that player driven, that leadership. We had 2 seniors, but we also had 5 great juniors. And I could just rattle them off, but it's Bobby Bates, who the reason Bobby was with us was because of Coach Mo. It's Justin May, who was an older junior, Wyatt Smith, older junior, Rocky Harris. All 3 of those guys were first-year guys. And then Jacoy Gillum was with us as well. Actually, Jacoy might have been a sophomore. But you had a phenomenal group there of guys that had a chip on their shoulder. I'll even say maybe second chance. That might not be the right word, but they were committed. In other words, they had maybe been somewhere before, and this was their chance to punch their ticket and do something special, do something that we hadn't done in a while. And I also want to touch on just the excellence across the board with all sports at Salisbury. And so you're around this every day. Every day you walk in the office, there's a trophy case, and there's very few basketball trophies in that case. That's a motivator in a good way. And the coaches and athletes, from Jim Berkman's crew to John Chamberlain and her team, I'm not going to list every single sport and coach, but you almost could. And the special things that they've done. And then you start to see the sacrifices. I know our players would see the commitment level that was needed just to have a chance to do something special. So the ending is the short answer to that question. But I certainly remember small moments from that season, like Sparacino on his senior day. I'm sure Mo could attest to this. Wyatt getting fouled with whatever, 2.7, no, it's less than that, maybe 0.7 seconds, them calling a timeout to ice him, us having a great timeout there, and me telling him, I love you whether you make these or not. And he just knocks him down, ice in his veins. Connor Strickland telling us, Coach, by this time next year, we are going to be cutting down a net, and that coming to fruition, and him playing or averaging the most minutes on that team. And then there's some guys that don't get the credit, like Justin May, who didn't statistically show up as much. He was every bit as valuable to our success. And Mo, Coach Mo, was every bit as valuable to his growth and success and him doing what he did. And I mean that wholeheartedly. But Justin May, like I remember us talking about iron sharpens iron, and he just took to that statement. And every day it was like, Coach, I'm sharpening your iron today, or Coach, I'm ready to get my iron sharpened. And I'll never forget walking into practice. And this is when you feel like, man, some of this is they're getting some of these messages, but it was before practice where typically you have guys stretching, shooting around. Um, it might be just kind of a lazy, like I'm waiting for practice to begin. And Justin had 3-on-3 going, transition style, and those guys just getting after it. And we hadn't even started practice yet. And it was, something that always stands out with me. And I share each of these stories with current teams, depending on the message and depending on what you want to get out of that group. But that's left a mark with me. And the last thing I'll say, and Ash, you might not have any more questions after all these long-winded answers, but
Okay.
was the staff games too. Like when you say what set this season apart, we had some of the best staff games there, 2-on-2, 3-on-3, some former great players. You got Mo, who's a first team all league CAC guy. You've got Dominic Milburn, you got Elijah Gore. We had some great games that also, I think, helped with all of our coaching, because as a coach, you remember, man, this game's not as easy sometimes. And we all make mistakes. And that's one thing I love about still playing is you make mistakes and you realize that, it's a game of mistakes. That's how you grow. I'll shut up.
All right. I have a question for Mo. Being back at Salisbury after you left and then came back, now you're the head coach. How do you think your experience as the assistant coach has integrated into your current team today?
Yeah, well, I'll get into that question, but I would also add, I think every place that I've been has prepared me and poured into me in some type of way of where I am now. But that specific team, there's 3 words as you were asking that really come to my mind, and it's the word sacrifice, competing, and belief. And I share that every single day with our team in some type of way. Sacrifice, it's bigger than just basketball. When you're here for 4 years, you're sacrificing some things. But when you become, a husband, father, start to get into the workforce of life, you got to sacrifice some things in order to get a result that's worthwhile. And that's really what those guys started to understand. Coach talked about that first couple of weeks and games that we had. There were a lot of guys that were kind of fighting, I think some roles there and really needed to be humbled a little bit and obviously maybe need to work a little bit harder. So, that word really comes to my mind. And then competing, he talks about the staff games and practices, but, again, it was an environment where competing mattered. And if you weren't competitive, it was going to be extremely uncomfortable for you. And, from 1 to 15, from head coach to assistant coach, that was the environment that we had, that everything mattered. And, even from the off season where, which is extremely player led at this level, those guys were competing. Everything had a purpose to it. And then the last thing is belief. When we stepped on the floor, I really believed, and those guys believed that we were going to win. It didn't matter who we were playing against. There was a belief. I remember, something, I'm sure Coach remembers this, obviously, but, the power of vision is so powerful in sports and in life. And something we would do before we got on the court to play someone is the guys would watch them having success of a previous game. And it really fed into the belief system. Like, hey, we've done this before. Doesn't matter what the only thing that's different is the jersey that the other team's wearing. We're going to do it again. And, those 3 words are just things that that really stood out to me from that season. And I'm constantly trying to pour those things into our guys, and in my own way. As much as Coach has been a huge influence for me, I think the greatest advice I've ever gotten is be yourself. So you have to do that in your own way. But, those 3 words really, really, showed a lot about that team and every individual on that team.
All right. I know that, Josh, you touched on this before, but I would love to hear from the both of you. Wyatt Smith, Gordon Jeter, Justin Whitmer, they all recently were named to the Salisbury basketball all-decade team. How do you think those players influenced the success?
Well, they were all tremendous talents in their own way. Each guy brought some tools to the table physically, but also mentally too. Yeah, I mean, clearly, the thing about those guys as well is they were stars that you wanted to be around. Like, they were stars that were easy to root for. They were as unselfish guys as you could be. Like, none of them came there set out to score 1,000 or be on the all-decade team. I think it was they come from winning backgrounds, winning programs, great families. Wyatt being a coach's son, and so they had those things going for them, and then the people around them. I think you're only as good as sometimes your role guys as well. So it's easy to brag on the guys that you see. It's hard for me, even when you talk about or ask about those guys, not to mention Rocky Harris, Connor Strickland, Adrian Strong, Kyle Saverickle, and just even go through that list, because those guys also provided resistance, like Mo said, competition for them to test themselves and to go against. But there was an incredible amount of buy-in from all of those guys as far as their teammates and the mission, and wanting, not being concerned with individual success, but it was all about the team. I mean, think about Gordon Jeter, who he can do a lot of things well, but he sacrificed and played out of position and guarded the other team's big guys for our team. I mean, he was our best forward, and we needed that. And he came into his own. I mean, CNU couldn't guard him, and he was a monster when it mattered. Wyatt was very similar. I remember sitting down with Wyatt and having dinner, and just no, you know what I remember most is when we came back from Christmas, Wyatt saying that he had watched Hakeem Olajuwon film, and Wyatt had come back just a new man. You know, just maybe being at home and getting a fresh perspective. And for those that know Wyatt, know that he beats to a different drum and thinks in his own way and in a good way. And but his commitment level, the fire in his eyes when he came back from Christmas break, I think it leads into one of your questions about when we knew we might have something. A lot of it had to do with his renewed commitment and wanting to do something special that he had never done before. Bo, what about you?
Yeah, the only other thing I would add, I mean, it's tough to follow up on everything you just said because I agree with it, but I think they all went through this process where they had to realize I have to get better. And I think about Wyatt, obviously, you know, very, very incredible talent, you know, when you look at the ending part and look back at everything he's done. But, you know, kind of like we talked about that season where there was a stretch there where, you know, you're like, man, we don't know how this is going to go. You know, he was one of those guys. And I just remember, you know, not trying to toot my own horn. I think we all poured in these guys in different ways, but just getting him in the gym more, just getting him to play the way coach wanted him to play instead of the way that he wanted to play. And, you know, Gordon, same thing. Gordon came in freshman. I think it was freshman of the year, his freshman year, but there was always this piece of his game of the strength, which is cool because now he's a strength coach. I mean, look how ironic that is. But, you know, where he got a lot stronger and he was in the gym. And then Whitmer, same thing, you know, came in as a shooter, you know, strength was something. And, you know, you start to see his game start to grow and blossom. So they all kind of hit this stage where they had to improve. And I think as players, some guys either take that and run with it, or some of them just kind of stay where they are and you never see that improvement. And as you say, those three guys, you know, I feel like all three of them in their own way hit that mark and really started to skyrocket. And it was mainly because of what coach said on the sense of the guys around them. You know, it was an environment where, again, you just couldn't come in and not compete. You could not come in and not sacrifice, and you cannot come into that gym and not believe, you know, that we're going to be able to be successful. So, yeah, that's what I think about when I hear those three names.
And I gotta jump in. So I gotta give my man Connor Strickland, who we wouldn't have Connor if it weren't for Tim Harwood. Connor had transferred to Salisbury because his best friend growing up, Tim Harwood, had been in the program, said good things. So he joined his teammate. And it wasn't an easy transition for Connor coming in. I know he had some frustration that it didn't happen all as soon as he went, but he stayed the process. This is a great story, I think, for all athletes, is like, if you stay with something, there is exponential return that you will get for a rivalry. So Connor stays with it. He's our leading minutes guy. I think he averaged 32 minutes, in my opinion, best point guard in the league that year. And so those three guys all have a thank you to Connor as well, because he made those guys look good. He would hunt the paint, make all those guys look better. His chemistry with Whitmer in the backcourt was great. He and Wyatt would connect a ton. And I think all three of those guys would say that the players around them helped elevate them on and off the floor.
I love that. That's a good point. I know we've alluded to this already, but was there a specific game or moment where either of you realized, we could really make this run?
There's some things that jump out to me were Rocky Harris scoring 20 points, and just knowing that anybody could step up at any moment. Adrian Strawn and the contributions that Adrian was making throughout the year, being a charge taker. I compare him to Kyle Lowry. You see Kyle Lowry now and winning the NBA championship, but he was our Kyle Lowry. He was a winner. And then Connor Strickland, like, we hadn't won at CNU in something like 16, 17 years. I don't remember the exact number, but those guys had a lot of reasons to kind of give in and quit down there, stayed the course. Connor Strickland, I remember, hits an unbelievably tough lefty layup to send it into overtime, and then we're able to pull off a win at CNU. I think that's one of those moments that you get a ton of confidence when you can win on the road against a worthy opponent, someone that we love to battle with, and then to beat them on the home floor in the CAC championship. You started to feel like, man, we can play with anybody, and we were excited to see what we could do in the tournament. Look at that timing. Perfect timing, Mo.
Question was there a specific game or moment?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, man. What you said, Coach, but there's two. All right, there's one for me where it was definitely towards the end of the year. We were at York, and we were not playing very well at all. And, I remember specifically there was a turnover, and Coach was not very happy on that turnover. But, that huddle where it could have shifted negative, the response from him to everyone else was, I don't think you had the board in your hand. You probably don't remember this, but it was like, we're fine. We're good. We just believe, something along those lines. And those guys just really gutted it out, and those are the types of games where the guys wearing the suits on the sideline that can't really pull you out. Those are the guys that really got to, really dig in and pull that game out. And we did. York's a tough place to play. Coach Hunter does a good job. So, that was a game where I was like, wow, this is a special group. And once we get to the CAC tournament, I just believe we're really going to be able to do something special. And it'd be interesting to see how far we go. And then this was after a loss, actually. So we played Penn State Harrisburg. And, I brought a guy back into the program named Adrian Strawn. And just what Adrian brought to our team. I mean, if there's anybody to describe Adrian's game, like, he reminds me of a Kyle Lowry. He's just so tough. He's strong. And this was another presence for us where, we needed another guy that could really bring the ball up the floor and could guard the other team's best guard. And Adrian did that. And just getting him back into what we were trying to do, it really just took us to a whole other level as well. And, for me, I was like, wow, this guy is special. And I just really believed that he was kind of that final piece that we needed from a guard standpoint that can really help this team go to the next level. So those are the two things that I remember. Obviously, I could tell you about the championship game and the free throw that Wyatt hit, but You know, those are just moments as a coach that you just remember, learning more about your team and really just seeing the environment change.
All right.
If I could find the clip too, I could tell you that dunk that Wyatt had at home versus York will always be one of the favorite moments and memories. But just a monster dunk.
The one,
I wish we had it, Mo. Well, I have it somewhere. I wish I could share the screen and show everybody.
yep, yeah. No, I know exactly what you're talking about. That was pretty. He had a few really good ones that year.
He did. He did.
Well, all right. That's all the questions I had specific. Is there anything that you guys wanted to touch on that I didn't get to?
I think you did great, Ash.
Thank you.
Yeah.
The only other thing I would say is just, I think it's really cool for me, you know, just to be in a different side of leadership and just how often I hear from those guys. I was showing Coach the upgrade of the office now. I joke because a lot of them are actually on the wall. So I'll send Whitmer a text and be like, I stare at you every day. You know, on the wall, I stare at you every day. Just little silly things. But I tell our current guys that these are the guys that are going to be in your wedding. They're going to be a part of some of the biggest milestones of your life. And I think our job as coaches, if you think about your favorite teams, you probably were really connected and you won. So our job as coaches, like myself and Coach Merkel, is how can we create the best experience that you had, the best team experience that you've had, and bring that here. And how to go even deeper is if you have 15 to 16 guys on your roster, how can we now create 15 to 16 different experiences and tie it into one? You know, and I think these guys that we're talking about in this program, I guarantee if we asked them their favorite teams, this was their favorite team. And, you know, I think that's the challenge for us as coaches is how can we create that experience for our program as we bring new guys in. Ask them, hey, what was your favorite team you played for? And they'll probably say a team that was connected and won. And how can we create that into what we're doing here? So just a special group. We hear from them all the time. And, you know, it's amazing to just see they're playing in a men's league and they can barely get up and down the floor. So it's funny. But, you know, they're connected forever, and they've taught me a lot.
Mo, when you talk to them, tell them it's unacceptable to be barely getting up the floor. I don't care how old they are. And the only thing that, the only thing I would add is, the thought came in my mind and this is what it was, Mo. Is basically as you're talking, I mean, because it's a reminder. We look at the banner and we think about the ending and the special. And yes, that was the favorite team, but people forget all the adversity and the tough things that happened leading up to. And so it's a reminder that you need those failures and it's your response to that adversity that will define ultimately the story and the success and the significance of that group or that time. So attitude, how you respond to the events, you know, and that particular philosophy carries over outside of basketball as well and into life.
No question.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much. I really appreciate you meeting with me over Zoom. That's really it. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Ash, for setting it up. Appreciate it. Mo, thanks for having me. Thanks for thinking of me, man. Always great to see you face to face.
Of course, man. You're forever a goal. Touch my life. You hear that very often. So it's a blessing, man, to be able to have our paths cross, continue to be close. And Ash, thank you for setting this up. You did a fantastic job.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.